Good afternoon, everyone. We're going to get started with today's webinar. Thank you for holding. I just want to make sure everyone can hear me okay. Could I get a confirmation from?
Yes, yes, we can.
Awesome. Thank you so much. We have a couple devices going over here. So if you lose us at any moment, someone just let me know. So we are so excited today because we have a yoga class specially designed for people with chronic pain, and Ryan Drozd is going to be leading us in that class. So first, we're going to talk a little bit about just how the webinar will be run and some housekeeping items. Then we're going to get into an overview of yoga. We're going to talk a little bit about different types of yoga, how to make sure you get the most out of yoga, and how to make sure you're not overdoing it, especially for those of us with chronic pain. And then we'll be going to the actual yoga class portion, which will be filmed live here from my living room, actually, with Ryan. And then we'll take some questions from the audience, and I'll talk about how to ask those questions in just a second. And then finally, we'll give you a little bit of an update from US Pain Department staff. That will be just about 15 minutes and go over the things we've been working on as a team. And as a reminder, I am Emily Lemisko, Director of Communications. I forgot to introduce myself. Hopefully some of you already know me from our previous webinars, and I'll be emceeing today. You can ask questions anytime by typing into the control panel under questions. But just a reminder, we'll be taking those questions at the end after the yoga session. We actually do not have a handout for today, so apologies for that. If you have to jump off at any time, all pep talks are recorded. So you can view them online at our website at uspainfoundation.org/webinars, and we usually post them within a few days after they air. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Ryan. So Ryan Drozd is a National Academy of Sports Medicine certified personal trainer and fitness nutrition specialist, an RYT 200 Yoga Alliance teacher, a licensed massage therapist, and a Reiki master. He has been coping with chronic upper back pain, neck pain, and rib pain for over 7 years, which led him to begin learning anything and everything related to wellness. His goal is to provide others with viable options for pain relief through sharing his personal experiences. In his spare time, he enjoys reading, yoga, cooking, and almost anything outdoors. Ryan is also an ambassador for the US Pain Foundation. We are so excited to have him here with us. And the reason we heard about Ryan is that he attended our advocacy summit this fall, and he treated us all to a yoga session during the summit. So we thought it was so wonderful, and we wanted to make sure we brought it to our community. So if you bear with me for a second, I'm going to switch over to our webcam so you can see both Ryan and I. Hold on one second. Okay, I'm just going to get this PowerPoint out of the way.
Hi, everyone.
Okay, can everyone see us?
Yes, we can.
Yes. Awesome. Okay. Thank you, guys. So before we do the actual yoga class, we thought it'd be helpful to talk a little bit about yoga, what yoga is, how it can help you, and kind of clear up some maybe misconceptions about yoga, especially for those of us with chronic pain. Both Ryan and I have, so we're very familiar. And Ryan is a trained yoga teacher, but I am a yoga student, so we'll chat a little bit about what's helped both of us and why we think yoga is beneficial. So my first question is, what's a common misunderstanding you think people have about yoga?
I think most people are just viewing yoga because of the fitness aspect of it. So I think yoga is just seen as a method of stretching, a method of flexibility. A lot of people get turned off, I think, by that, because they think of it as hot yoga with the Bikram yoga. And it's not all the yoga has to offer. So yoga is more than just holding long stretches and trying to be more flexible. You can do it to relax, you can do it for strength, you can do it for balance. And there's also the spiritual aspect of it, there's the meditative aspect of it. Following drawing your breath, controlling your breath, controlling your movement in your body. So I think it just makes you more aware of your body. And for pain, that's a big thing because, you want to avoid your pitfalls and try to strengthen things that, are going to hurt you.
Awesome. Yeah, I know. I always thought of yoga before I tried it myself as someone like doing a handstand in a 100-degree room, and was completely turned off until I actually tried it for myself and found some more gentle approaches. So yeah, I think it's important for people to know that there's a type of yoga for everyone, and it's not just the folks who can turn themselves into human pretzels that can do it. So what types of yoga do you think are most suitable to people with pain?
Definitely gentle yoga, which is what we'll be doing today. So gentle yoga, restorative yoga, which uses a lot of bolsters and a lot of blocks, where you're moving from position to position, but you're holding those positions, but you're not supporting yourself. So you're letting the block support you, or you're letting the floor support you. Also hatha yoga. Hatha yoga is another slower form of yoga. So anything kind of slow, relaxed. You don't want to be in like a power flow class to start off, because power flow, of course, that's what I started off with, but it's just, that's more the like athletic kind of yoga that most people envision yoga as being. So yeah, anything slow, controlled, but look for restorative, relaxed, restorative, gentle, or hatha as the main labels.
Okay, those are good terms to look for when looking for a class then.
Yeah.
Cool. So what benefits?
Emily and Ryan?
Yeah.
Yes, I don't want to interrupt, but if you guys could talk just slightly louder, that would be fantastic.
Sure. Sorry, guys.
Great. Thank you.
So, what benefits do you think yoga can provide, especially for people who have chronic pain?
I think yoga can provide more flexibility, of course. Like flexibility is the main thing that people see yoga as. So flexibility, improved strength, improved range of motion, overall just relaxation or parasympathetic stimulation. So your parasympathetic system is your rest and digest versus your fight or flight sympathetic. So activating parasympathetic nervous system, and just really focus. So like mental clarity, being in the moment, focusing on your breath rather than the pain that you're feeling in your body. Because a lot of times all we think about most of the day is, okay, I'm in pain, I'm in pain, I'm in pain, I'm in pain. So it's a way to get out of that pain and focus on either the teacher's voice or focus on your internal breath or your internal movement versus just the pain in your body.
Yeah, no, I for me, yoga has been a lot about just relaxation, which I really, is a huge thing. As Ryan was saying, like, I love going to a class and just being able to kind of, I don't want to say tune out, but it's like having a teacher tell me what poses to do. You get to kind of, just not have to really think for an hour, while kind of benefiting your body during these different stretches. And also for me, because, I consider myself pretty disabled because of my spine problems. And there was a lot of poses that I didn't think I could do. And at first I couldn't do, but gradually I tried them a little bit more. And I've been able to build some strength and flexibility in areas that previously, like, I really couldn't do anything with, just by going slow, and kind of experimenting it and keeping an open mind. And that's not to say that once in a while I didn't overdo it, so you have to be really careful. So along those lines, what do you think are some tips for staying safe and not overdoing it while practicing yoga?
So the number one tip that I recommend to any new student is just stay in your own body. So a lot of people, when they first start off, they want to, become the yoga champion of the world, which isn't a thing, but they want to do all these poses. They want to try everything right off the bat, and that's fine. But if something doesn't feel right, you got to make sure that you stop. If something hurts, if you feel sharp pain, if you feel numbness, tingling, you got to stop. You got to, come out of that pose slowly. And don't compare yourself to the people around you. So a lot of times we make these comparisons like, oh, I'm not good at this. I can't do this. We beat ourselves up. But everybody starts at a different point and everybody progresses at a different point. So just really focus on yourself, how you feel on your mat, how you feel in your body. That's really the only thing that matters. It doesn't matter what everybody else around you is doing. And even if you have to take a break, there's no shame in taking a break in the middle of class or stopping and then picking back up when the class gets too far ahead. So I always recommend just keep your own pace. You can follow along. The teacher is not going to think any less of you, if you're not up to speed with the rest of the class, because everybody's moving at their own pace. We're just kind of guiding you through, providing you options to try to strengthen your practice.
Right. And any yoga teacher or yoga studio that is a good yoga teacher or studio, they will always kind of reinforce, make sure that you're putting yourself first and listening to your body. They won't pressure you to do that handstand or that human pretzel shape. So if that's not the case at the place that you end up going or exploring, maybe that's not the right place for you. But in most cases, in my experience, teachers do say, if at any time you need to take this less complicated pose or this more restful pose, please do. And you'll see that people do. And that's kind of important to understand about yoga, is that you can take a break and you don't have to push it. It's not a competition.
And there's modifications as well. So
Right.
A lot of teachers will say, okay, here's the main pose, then we'll give an option or modification. So there's either a challenge or there's something that makes it a little easier, more accessible. So
Right.
there's no like guidelines like, oh, you have to do exactly this. It's like there's always some sort of easier option or harder option for you to try throughout the class.
Right. So they really do try to make it accessible to everyone. So that brings us to yoga props. And what do you think about using props during yoga, and what kind of props are available to people?
Yeah, I think yoga props are great. Like when I first started off, I thought that yoga props were kind of cheating. I thought that they were making it too easy. I thought that it was only for beginners, but really it's for anybody. I mean, you can, like the beauty of yoga props is you can make any pose either harder or easier based on your skill level. So a lot of poses that I wasn't able to do that weren't accessible to me, I suddenly could do with props, and my alignment became better, my balance became better. So runner's lunge is a great example of that. Some people are familiar with runner's lunge. You usually ended up like folding forward because your hands can't reach the floor.
Mm-hmm.
So it really just brings the floor up to you with some bolsters or with some blocks.
Mm-hmm.
And bolsters also are great if you're in a restorative class because you're just allowing your body to relax into the bolster, into the floor, versus trying to support your weight against gravity.
Mm-hmm.
So,
do you want to show us some of your props? I know you brought some with him today.
Yep, sure. So the first one I've got here is a strap. So straps you can use for a lot of shoulder stuff. So you can come like around the back with shoulder stretches, shoulder mobility, range of motion exercises. They're also great for tight hamstrings. So you can loop it around your foot. And then again, if you can't reach your toes, this is awesome because you can still do a lot of the stretches, a lot of the movements.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of times teachers will use the strap, not always. And a big component for many classes is the blocks.
Mm-hmm.
So yoga blocks, they're cheap, they're different heights and different sizes. So this is one of the bigger sizes. They also have like tinier height or smaller height.
Mm-hmm.
And these are just great, again, for raising the floor up, making poses more accessible, or supporting your knees or supporting the weight of your body in certain positions.
Mm-hmm. Awesome.
And the last one I have is a bolster. So these you're going to use a lot in restorative and a lot in gentle classes because there's a lot of folds and there can be some twists, but they're supported twists. So every single pose in like a restorative class, you're going to be using either blocks or a bolster.
Right. Okay. Cool. And I know from personal experience, the strap and the blocks, those are like between $5 and $10 online. You also might be able to find something that works around your house as a stand-in. But when you go to yoga studios, almost all of them will have those props right there in the classroom. So you just walk in, you take what you need, and you bring it to your place on the floor, and then you use them. And it can be really helpful as a way to make some poses more accessible to you. So final question before we get to our yoga class, which I know is what people are most excited about. What do you suggest people look for when trying to find a yoga studio or class that's right for them?
I definitely recommend trying a lot of different places out. So don't get your heart set on one place and then just visit one place and be disappointed because you don't like it. It's kind of like shopping for a house. So it's going to be rare that you find that fit the first shot that you walk into a studio. So you should feel comfortable with the studio, number one, like you should feel relaxed, it should feel homey to you. And then number two, the teacher should like jive well with you, or they should resonate with you. I went to probably 5 or 6 different studios before I finally picked one out and decided like this is the one for me, and I knew it right away. Like as soon as I walked in, I just felt at ease, I felt at home. So just use your intuition. You should feel relaxed. You should feel relaxed going into the studio. You should feel relaxed going out of the studio as well. And call in advance, maybe speak to some of the staff, speak to the owner. A lot of times places will offer trial passes or heavy discounts in the beginning if you're a new student. So they'll either offer you like a week trial for free or a week trial for like $20. You can go to unlimited classes. So I always suggest take as many classes as you can at a different studio and really just get a feel for what they offer and see if it matches up with what you're looking for.
Right. And like Ryan was saying before, you might want to look for a studio that has classes that have the words, slow or gentle or restorative if you're just trying out. And a lot of studios too will do, like a monthly community class, which will be like a free class for all levels. You can just go pop in and try it out. I know some offer like outdoor yoga for free in parks and cities in the summer. That's how I actually started yoga. And like Ryan said, like I went to 1 or 2 studios before finding one that I really liked. And the first one was like a hot yoga, like the really high temperatures and like doing all kinds of crazy things. I was like, oh my God, yoga's not for me. Luckily, because of a free class, I found this other studio that was really supportive and really accessible, and did a lot of modifications and made sure that it was available for all abilities, which was great. And like you said, calling ahead is a great idea, especially you can say, I have chronic pain, or I have a knee problem, I have a shoulder problem. What type of class do you recommend? And the other thing that I do, which I think can be helpful, is I will show up early to a class and I'll pull the teacher aside and I'll say, and sometimes I think it's more for my benefit than theirs, but I'll say, just so you know, like I have a neck problem, I'm not gonna be able to do certain poses a certain way. So if you notice me doing my own thing, that's why. And they're always like, that's fine, don't worry about it, whatever you need to do. But if that makes you feel more comfortable, it's definitely an option. So we are going to move into the yoga portion of today's event. So give us a quick second to get that set up. And this will be about 15 to 20 minutes. And it will be done in a chair, but you can stand if you would like to. It's totally up to you. And like we've been talking about, and Ryan will reiterate throughout, just go slow, be mindful of your body. Only you know what's best for you. We're doing this from the comfort of our home, so no one can see you. No one's judging you. Whatever you need to do is fine. And if you do have any concerns about participating, feel free to put this on pause, check with your doctor, and you can always watch the recording at a later date. It's totally up to you. So we'll get set up and Ryan will get started.
All right. And it's funny that Emily mentioned hot yoga, because that's actually how I started off with my yoga experience as well. And I had a very poor first hot yoga experience. So know that it isn't just hot yoga. There's plenty of kinds of yoga out there, because I was totally turned off when I first started yoga. Thought I wasn't going to be practicing again, but I found different types that really, work for me. So give it a shot. Don't, just think one class is the only kind of class out there. Okay, so we're going to start from a seated position, so you can either sit in your chair or sit on your floor or the bolster. Ground down through your feet or ground down through your sits bones as well. So support through the spine. Hands can rest comfortably, either palms face down or palms face up, whatever feels good to you. And take a moment here to check in with your body. And when you're ready, gently close down your eyes. So send the breath into your belly. Have your left hand on your belly, your diaphragm, right hand on your heart. And focus on expanding your diaphragm. You want to feel your hand come out from your belly. And then send the breath up through your chest.
I got it finally. Not through there, right? She said you use the linking emitters.
So slowly sending the breath in through the belly, expand through your ribs, finally all the way to the chest. And on the exhale, reverse that order. So breathing out through the chest, ribs come in, and then belly sinks down. Do this at your own pace 3 more times. So repeating diaphragm, ribs, chest, and let it out. Opening up your eyes now. So we're going to begin our practice with some cat-cow breathing as well. So for cat-cow, I'm going to face away from you guys. You can see the side angle. So placing your hands, palms face down on your knees. Start by just coming up and bring your shoulder blades back. So you're pushing up and kind of letting your spine elongate here. And on the exhale, push away through the palms, round your lower back, round your upper back. Inhale, come up. And exhale, round. So you really want to focus on rounding and caving your shoulders and then bending through your lower back. And when we come up, bring the belly out, hips are forward. So on your next exhale, allow your body to come back to your resting position and making our way into pigeon pose. So this is also known as a 4-point stretch. So bringing our left leg across our right knee, and you can let your left hand rest down on your knee. You should feel a stretch in through your hips. We're trying to release or relax the lower back a little bit because a lot of times tension comes from our hips, not our lower back. So a lot of people with lower back pain actually have issues with their hips or their hips are short. So this is great to loosen up the hips. And you can just relax here if this feels like enough of a stretch. Or if we were going to make this harder, we would raise this up or we would bring our knee in to put more pressure on the hip. So just holding here, breathing, feeling that stretch into your hip. Good. And with every inhale, you want to try to lengthen a little bit, and then with the exhale, just melt into the pose. Slowly uncross that leg, and then make your leg, bring your leg to the other side now. So using your right leg, opposite leg, across your knee. You want to have a nice right angle here with your leg, and you can either, again, rest your palm on your right knee or rest your elbow down to provide a little more pressure. And you should feel this on the outside of your hip. So a little bit of your hip and a little bit of your outside or lateral rotators on your glutes. So this is good a lot of times for people that sit a lot. If you're in an office a lot, sitting at your desk, you can just do this from your desk. You can have one knee across. And every time we come into a pose, think of sending breath into that specific area. So if you feel the stretch in the outside of your glute or you feel a stretch in your hip, send breath to that area, create space in that area. Now gently lift up the leg with your arms, uncross the legs, and making our way into a reverse prayer. So for reverse prayer, it's more of a shoulder stretch. So we're going to start just by clasping our fingertips together behind our back, opening up through the shoulders, send the knuckles straight down toward the floor. You want your shoulders back, not rounded in. So instead of rounding, bring our shoulders back. Imagine like you're trying to touch both scapula together. And an option here, if we want to make this a little more difficult or if you want to increase the stretch, is we can kind of slowly walk our way down. So we're bringing our chest toward our knees, and then our hands come up toward the ceiling, or our knuckles come up toward the ceiling. On our next breath, nice big inhale. On the exhale, come back up and relax. And now another option, if we feel comfortable with that, we can come into our reverse prayer pose. So for reverse prayer, we're bringing both palms together, fingertips face up, again, toward the ceiling. And this is okay if you have flexible shoulders. If you don't have flexible shoulders, don't do this pose, okay? It could cause some pain if you feel, any tightness, if you feel don't attempt that pose. So again, this is just an option to make it more challenging if you feel comfortable with that. Another great shoulder stretch that I like to incorporate is archer pose. So archer, you're actually trying to grab both hands behind your back. But I brought my strap here because I wanted to show you guys this pose with the strap, because it's much more comfortable with the strap or even with a towel. So if you have a towel at home and you really want to lengthen through your triceps or through your shoulders, you bring your right hand over your back and your left hand below. So you're grabbing that towel below and you're pulling down on the towel or on the strap and then pulling up on the other side. So you should feel stretch and you should feel lengthening into your shoulders. So I'll face all the way toward the camera just so you guys can see that. So like this. And then as you get better and better, you can bring your hands closer and closer together so that the goal is eventually to get your fingertips to touch behind your back. And again, the strap is great for this. Towel's fine, anything that brings both your hands together. All right, so coming back to center, we're going to raise our arms up overhead. So it's almost like we're doing a sun salutation. So nice big inhale, arms come up overhead. And on the exhale, swan diving forward, hinging forward at our hips. We can rest our chest on our knees, or we could even come down and bring our feet all the way to the floor if that feels comfortable in our body. If it doesn't, you can just rest both elbows comfortably on your knees, and then bring your head down to rest on your forearms. Again, raising up. Nice big inhale. Exhale, swan dive forward, either touching the floor or touching our chest to our knees. Lift up halfway in the inhale. Lower down on the exhale. Again, all the way up on the inhale. And bring your hands back together to rest at your knees. So that's kind of like a modified sun salutation, and we're going to do that from standing as well. But the goal is to lengthen on the inhale, bring your arms up overhead. On the exhale, you're bending forward, so you're hinging forward at your hips and relaxing through your lower body, and really just creating length through your hamstrings, but you can have the knees bent on that. So creating length through the lower back, creating length through the back body. And anytime we have a forward fold, if there's somebody who has blood pressure issues where they feel like they get dizzy or they get faint, bring your forehead or bring their top of their head to the floor, just modify that. So rather than go all the way down in that position, you can always modify and just come halfway and just settle here if that feels comfortable to you. So there's never one way to do a position. I just want to reiterate that. It's always what feels good in your body. So there's never going to be like an end all be all. You have to do it this way. There should always be a modification for any condition that you've got. All right, so the last seated pose that I wanted to do before going into some standing chair sequences is a spinal twist. So we're going to bring our right hand on the outside of our left knee, And then left arm can come behind our chair. So you either grab the back of our chair like this, or you can grab the bottom, the base of the chair. Let me show you this from the side actually. So I'm going to twist to the opposite side just so you guys can see. So bringing the palm to the outside, gripping the outer edge of the chair. So we're lengthening on the inhale, and then on the exhale, slowly twisting over that shoulder. So you can either look out over that opposite shoulder, or you can just keep your head here if that feels good. So you never have to twist your neck all the way back. It's whatever feels good. So make sure when we're seated here, we're grounded still, lengthening, big breath, and on the exhale, twist. One more big inhale, and exhale, twist. All right, great. So unwrapping that twist, coming back to center again, and now twisting to the opposite side. So I'll show you from the opposite side as well. Hand comes to the outside of the knee. Opposite hand comes around the chair. Sit up nice and tall here on the inhale. And on the exhale, twist, and gently look over your shoulder that you're twisting toward. Lengthen on the inhale. Exhale, twist a little deeper. And one more breath. Exhale, relax into the twist. Slowly unwrap, come back to center again. And from here, I wanted to do a few standing chair positions. So chair is good for a lot of positions, not just seated positions. You can do a lot of cool modifications. So from standing, we're going to go into our full sun salutation. So we kind of did like a half sun salutation before. Actually, no, I lied. We're not going to do sun salutation since I'm cut off there. So we're going to skip the sun sals and instead do a bird dog. So for a chair bird dog, we're actually going to use our chair to support ourselves. So normally we would do this from tabletop position in yoga. So from table, we would bring one arm out and one knee out. Using our chair, bringing our left leg back, left hand and right hand are both planted on the chair. And you want to extend out through your heel. So extending out through your back heel, keeping your spine straight, back is straight. If you feel comfortable here with your balance, you can bring your opposite arm straight out. So you've got your left leg back, right arm forward. And again, this is more advanced, so don't feel like you have to do this pose. It's just really good for strengthening the back body, strengthening your balance, and kind of keeping your hips level. So if you want to do the opposite side of that pose, you bring our right heel straight back, left arm straight out, balance. So it's kind of like a progression. So what you would do is you would start for a balancing drill, you would start with both feet planted, both arms planted, your back is nice and flat, and then bring one heel back. You don't have to bring the arm back. When you feel comfortable, the arm can come up and then come back down to center. So I would just alternate back and forth there for a few rounds just to get your balance and your positioning. Another great pose that I like from standing, I'm just going to do it seated for you guys, but it's just a side bend. So for a side bend, we're bringing both palms together, arms up overhead, fingertips are pointing toward the ceiling. So you've got your clasps together, fingertips up toward the ceiling, inhaling nice and long, and on the exhale, tipping over to the right side. So we're gently twisting, or we're not twisting, we're bending our body over to the right side. So it's almost like we're pointing to the sky, and then we're bringing our body to the crescent stage. So back up to center. Nice big long inhale. On the exhale, slowly bend over to the left side. So we're gently strengthening and lengthening through our side bodies. You should feel a stretch on your right side as you lean over to the left. One more big breath up to center. Then gently bend over to the right side. So again, fingertips pointed up toward the sky. Back to center. So normally I would do this standing, like I said, but I don't want to be cut off from you guys, so you can't see me all the way from standing. The last standing pose that I wanted to show you that's pretty cool and pretty creative is Warrior One. So there's Warrior One and Warrior Two. They're pretty common throughout a yoga class, but a lot of times people have problems with the balance on that, the foot positioning. So I just wanted to show you kind of workaround in a chair. So if you're doing Warrior One from a chair, we would start by having the chair angled toward us, and we're going to bring one leg over. So we're going to bring our left leg over, and we could actually sit in the chair like this. And then our right leg comes back behind us. So if we're doing Warrior One, our right leg is going to be out more at an angle. So we're bringing our toes out at a 45-degree angle, and then our left knee is bent here. So we're just actually sitting in the chair doing Warrior One. So for Warrior One, arms come up overhead. You should feel a stretch through your hip, through the right side of your hip, all the way down through your leg. In the transition into Warrior Two, the only difference is we're bringing our arms out, so opposite arms, palms are face down, and then our leg comes back behind us, and it should be parallel with our heel. So our heel should draw an imaginary line in the middle of our back leg. So it's an interesting modification to bring us to an actual standing Warrior Two versus seated. So seated, we're just taking the pressure of gravity off of our legs, and we're just allowing our body to sink down into Warrior Two using the chair. So options there, Warrior One, where you have your arms up overhead, or Warrior Two, transition, move that leg out, so you're still getting that stretch. Or you can extend your legs all the way out. And I usually like to support here. So if you had a bolster, if you had a block, it's usually nice to take the stress off your lower back by putting a bolster right underneath both knees. So you've got your bolster here, you can let your knees drop or the backs of your legs drop, palms are face up, and relax into the floor. So Shavasana is always our final pose or final resting pose. It usually lasts about 2 to 5 minutes, but I'm going to cut that out for you guys because it would be a little weird to just have me on camera just in Shavasana for 5 minutes. So we're just going to skip ahead to that. But yeah, I just wanted to let you guys know kind of what positions you might see in a chair yoga class, what position you might see in a gentle yoga class, and they're going to be more in depth. You know, I was kind of whizzing by a few different things, but I just wanted to show you kind of an idea of what you can expect if you go into a gentle class. So thanks a lot, guys, for following along, and we're going to go into our last part, our Q&A, I believe.
Yes.
Okay.
Hi guys, so we'll pull our chairs back here. So hopefully you all enjoyed that and didn't find it too difficult. But so now is our chance to kind of check in and see how you did. And you can type in some questions, which I can then read to Brian. So again, that's under the questions section of your sidebar on the right. So we'll just wait a second and see what comes in. Also, apologies for the noise in the background. We have staff waiting in the wings to give their department updates, and I think someone didn't have themselves on mute, but we tried to fix that, so hopefully it wasn't too distracting. So one question we have so far is how often and for how long do you recommend practicing yoga for?
So if you're doing like the the asanas, like the athletic portion of it, I would say start off anywhere from half an hour to an hour. So I wouldn't go over an hour, because a lot of times the hot yoga classes like you took and that I took, they're like 90-minute sweat sessions. So you're just 90 minutes of just like dripping sweat. That's not what you want to do to start off. So I always recommend an hour or less, and probably 1 to 2 times a week to start off. And then if you feel comfortable with 2 times a week, then up it to 3. But don't just start off and do 3 times a week right off the bat, because a lot of times your body's not accustomed to exercise. You're at the highest chance for injury. So a lot of times when people come out in the new year, that's usually when they get injured, because they say, okay, new year, new me. I'm going to do as much exercise as I can the next month and a half, and then they end up on the couch because they strain something or sprain something. So ease into it. Don't go nuts and try to do it 3 or 4 times a week right from the start, because delayed onset muscle soreness usually takes 2 to 3 days to hit. So if you take your first class, you might be feeling great, and then 3 days later, you're like, okay, I gotta like tap the brakes. So give it a few days, and I'd say 1 to 2.
Better to underdo it than to overdo it.
In the beginning, yeah.
It's easier to do more, and it's very hard to go back in time and do less.
Yeah.
So we have a lot of people are just saying thank you for doing that. And someone said in particular they have lower back pain and hip pain from sitting too much, and they feel like this has helped. One question we have from someone is, what online resources do you recommend for yoga programs? So, and this is a great question, because say you have trouble driving or getting to a yoga studio, what can you find online that might be helpful?
Yeah, no, that's great. There's actually a good resource is Yoga Journal. Yoga Journal, I look stuff up on there all the time. Actually, before I did this class, I looked up some cool chair poses. That's how I found the Warrior 1, Warrior 2.
Right.
So they have a lot of good material out there. So if you just type in chair yoga poses or yoga poses at home, there's tons of videos on YouTube as well. So like I always recommend videos for this kind of stuff versus just like writing. It's very hard to read something and then try to position your body into that way by not seeing it. So go to content on YouTube that has nice videos listed, or pictures of the poses, so you can like replicate them and have somebody maybe watch you who's kind of familiar with their body, has an athletic background, say, hey, can you just come over for a few minutes and just see how I look in this? Because that's the only thing that you don't have, is you don't have a teacher.
Feedback.
Yeah, the feedback, somebody watching you saying, you gotta like bring your right leg back, or you gotta adjust your heel a little bit. So just to have somebody kind of over your back in the beginning when you first get started would be good.
Right, and teachers, we were talking earlier about how making sure that you're not being pushed too far in one direction, but teachers can also help make sure you're not hurting yourself. So, they're not just gonna say like, oh no, you need to like, sit down more, bend more, squat more, whatever. They might say like, watch out, your knee is like really angled out too far over your ankle and you might hurt yourself. So that is one benefit of classes that you kind of lose with doing video, but it is a great way to kind of get started and experiment. And there's so many online that are free. It's like amazing.
Yeah.
And you can even, a lot of us are pressed for time. You can even Google and say, in YouTube, say like, yoga 15 minutes, and there'll be a 15-minute yoga session that you can try.
Yeah, and there's restorative stuff online too. Like they'll show you where to bolster, they'll show you where to position blocks. There's gentle stuff. Most of the chair stuff they're going to give you too, it's not that intense. It's not alignment. Like the alignment doesn't have to be critical in a lot of those things. So it's good. And
I would say though, just make sure that, the online classes are good, but there is something you kind of lose with not being an in-person class. And that's, the teacher feedback is one. But it's also kind of like the group energy is nice. It's just nice to be with other people in that kind of a relaxing setting and a place where everyone's trying to better themselves. And also I found that going to classes, I'll sometimes get like ideas for how to modify a pose based on what one of my classmates is doing, which I've always thought was really interesting. So that's, one benefit of going to an actual class. Let's see what other questions we have. Someone was asking, and I know you'll have a good answer for this. How do you combat knee pain from the floor poses? So like getting sore knees when you're like lying down during child's pose, or anything on the floor.
Yeah. So that's a problem for a lot of people. lot of people have knee pain. Wrist pain is a big one too for people that spend a lot of time either typing or using their hands a lot. So for the knee thing, I would recommend using either a bolster under your knees, which might be too high, but bolster provides a lot of support, but you can also use a blanket. Like they'll have blankets in almost all studios. So what you do is you come down on the blanket or the bolster, put your knees on the blanket and the bolster, and then do your pose from there. So you're just cushioning your knees, providing space between the floor and your knees. And for wrist stuff as well, they usually have, they're almost like the push-up plus things, so like the little push-up handle grip things. And so you're grabbing those handles versus having your arms flat, because then you're putting a lot more pressure on your wrist when your palms are face down.
Okay. Yeah, well, those are great. Yeah, the blankets, I think I always use a blanket under my knees.
Yeah.
For doing things like tabletop or anything, because I don't have bad knees, but it just hurts.
It's uncomfortable.
It's sore.
Yep.
And sometimes yoga mats aren't always like cushiony enough. So that's a great question.
And they also have different mat thicknesses now that you mentioned that. So they have an 1/8 inch. Usually most beginners I'd recommend start with a 1/4 inch, because that's like thicker and more fluffier, so you get a little bit more cushion between your floor and your knees.
Which can help with stability too, probably. Let's see. Someone was asking, do you recommend that someone needs to do cardio before doing yoga?
I wouldn't say that you have to. You could if you wanted to. You could like do some, do some like gentle jogging or gentle walking or something. I wouldn't go overboard, but it is nice to loosen up your muscles a little bit, like especially if the class you're going into, like if it's freezing outside like it is here, it might be a good idea just to kind of get the blood flowing a little bit, but it's not required because most of the time the room is going to be warm enough for you.
Right. And if you're, say the question is kind of, you want to get cardio out of yoga, you can speed up poses as much as you want. And you do end up getting, even though it's stretching, you end up getting a cardio effect, especially from, poses where you're standing up to lying down.
Chaturanga. So so if you're looking for more cardio, then I would recommend not so much gentle yoga, but power flow. So like they have power flow yoga or just flow yoga in general, where you're flowing from pose to pose to pose. You're not staying in one position too often.
Right.
But most of the time, unless you're taking one of those classes, yoga isn't a lot of cardio. It's more strength based and more flexibility based than cardio.
Right. I always end up huffing and puffing because I'm out of shape, but maybe that might just be me. Let's see. Someone was asking about any shoulder poses you might suggest specifically.
Okay, like shoulder, like
so the person is saying that they have CRPS in one of their shoulders, so they can only really use the other shoulder. And feel free to correct me if I'm messing with your question at all. But yeah, they were wondering about loosening up their left shoulder in particular.
Okay, yeah. So for shoulder, so one of the shoulder positions that I mentioned, I'm just gonna like show you because that's the easiest.
Sure, yeah.
So like one of them I mentioned was your palms, your knuckles face down. But I know if you have a bad shoulder, that's gonna be difficult. One thing you could do is, I'm not sure how much flexibility you have in your other arm, but you could grab your hand behind your back or grab your wrist behind your back as well, and kind of stretch across. That gets a little bit of the shoulder. Also, any position where you've got, like if you want to open up your shoulders, you can have your palms face up and then bring your thumbs out to the side, and bring your scapula together. So it's kind of opening up the shoulders and the upper back. Or you have the typical, I call it like a gym class stretch, where you bring one arm across and you loop it underneath. So it's just bring your shoulder across, stretching that out. You see it in gym classes all the time. So that's a simple one.
Awesome. And if you have questions about specific ways to stretch specific body parts, I think Yoga Journal has some great resources. If you go to yogajournal.com, if you search for like hip stretch or certain like body, whatever the part of your body is that you're working on, they will usually come up with a few different options, or just, not even yogajournal.com, just Google, you'll get some images and can kind of explore that way if you're looking for some targeted help. And I think we have time for just like one or two more questions. So this next one is, if you found this session hard, what do you recommend to do? How should they approach trying to, if even gentle yoga is a little too hard, what do you recommend?
Yeah, so gentle yoga, I would recommend restorative. So restorative is even slower. So I threw in, just to let you guys know too, I threw in a few more challenging poses at the end there, like Warrior 1, Warrior 2. You probably won't see those in every gentle class, but I just wanted to give you a feel for some of the other poses that are out there. But most of the time with gentle, if you let the teacher know ahead of time, especially what condition is bothering you, gentle should be good for you. But if gentle feels like too much for you right off the bat, then restorative, because restorative is even slower paced. Like you're literally, you're staying in a position for like 2 minutes, but you're not holding it at all. Like you're supported by your blocks, by your bolster. There's not a lot of stretching going on. You're more or less just relaxing into the floor. So it's just a good way to dip your feet in would be start off with restorative. Then once you feel comfortable with that, then you can move to gentle afterward.
Awesome. Yeah, and again, maybe you're not up for a class, but even just doing some at home and trying one of those really short videos, like those 10 minutes or those 15 minutes, or breaking it down even more, if you look up some poses, just some pictures, and just try doing a couple poses at home just to kind of experiment and get started in just, a few minutes at a time a day, because it can be intimidating to do a whole class. But yeah, so we have a lot of thank yous coming in. So Ryan, thank you so much. That was amazing. Sorry for the background noise that we had at a couple moments there. It's always an adventure trying to get technology to operate correctly for us, but we do our best. But Ryan, you were absolutely wonderful. We really appreciate that. And as a reminder to everyone, we're going to have this recording up online, so you can refer back to it at a later date if you want to. All of our webinars are recorded and posted online on our website, uspainfoundation.org/webinars. And so we'll have this posted in a few days. So before you all, actually, one more great question that just came in, then we'll get to the last portion of the webinar. Someone was asking, how can you judge if your injury or your pain flare is too acute to do yoga?
Oh yeah, that is a good question. So I mean, usually it's kind of like a judgment call personally, because I've been to classes where I knew right away, I was like, all right, this is too much for me. I knew I had to chill out and relax, and I shouldn't have been there. So it's up to, I'd say, a combination of your doctor. Like you talk to your doctor and your doctor's like, well, I don't want you doing this, but I want you doing that. So listen to their advice, but also listen to your body itself. So if you just injured, say, I don't know, if you just pulled your hamstring or something, I wouldn't be going right back into class right away. You've got to give it some time to heal. So it's really just a judgment on your own part and kind of professionals around you that you're working with, whether or not it's safe for you to go back to a class or go to class for the first time.
Right, and maybe err on the side of caution when you're first starting out, and over time you kind of develop a better sense of what works and what the limitations are. So for real, that was our last question. If you have more questions for Ryan, though, you can email us at USPain. So contact@uspainfoundation.org, and we can forward those over to Ryan. He can answer them for you. I'm volunteering you for that. That's okay. So now just hang tight again for one last switch. We're going to go over to our department updates. That will be like 10 to 15 minutes, and we'll just give you a little overview of what we've been working on as an organization. So I hope you'll stick around for that. Ryan, thank you again. That was awesome. We really appreciate it. We appreciate your time.
Thanks for having me.
All right. Hold on one second while we switch over.